The night Sophia was diagnosed as being in a vegetative state, Alexander seemed to lose his mind.
Emma, is this how you show your love for me?
He dragged Emma from the hospital to the alley where the incident happened and pinned her against the wall.
Alexander, let me explain.
Explain? Your so-called explanation is that you invited Sophia to a bar in the middle of the night and then paid some thugs to torment her all night?
No, it's not like that.
Shut up! There were messages on Sophia's phone from you. How dare you still deny it? Do you know how much I want to strangle you? Why isn't it you lying in there? Why does Sophia, who has loved and protected you since childhood, have to suffer the consequences of your actions?
The doctor had said that Sophia had been tormented all night, causing severe psychological trauma, and she might never wake up. Just thinking about Sophia's condition when she was brought to the hospital made Alexander feel like 1,000 needles were piercing his chest. Ignoring her trembling body, he tore her white dress with a ripping sound.
Alexander, please don't do this.
Although she liked Alexander, she always remembered that this man was about to become her brother-in-law. No matter how much she liked him, she buried that secret deep in her heart, never daring to cross the line. She thought the three of them could continue like this until Alexander and Sophia got married. But she never expected something like this to happen to Sophia.
Don't do this? Did you listen to Sophia's cries when you had people hurt her? Emma, remember this place well. It was here that you destroyed the woman I love most, so I will destroy you here too, dragging you down to misery with me.
In the place where Sophia was hurt, he pinned her to the dirty ground. In the end, before losing consciousness, Emma could only see the hatred in Alexander's eyes, a hatred that tore apart the heart she had loved for 13 years. From that day on, Emma became Alexander's captive lover. And this life continued for 3 years. The sudden sound of her phone's alarm interrupted Emma's memories of that night 3 years ago. The chicken soup in the kitchen was already bubbling. She quickly got up to turn off the stove. This was the chicken soup she had made for Alexander. She watched over it carefully, not daring to make a single mistake.
He should be coming back soon.
Just as she was thinking about whether to call him, her phone rang. It was Alexander's driver.
Miss Evans, you need to get to Grace Hospital quickly. Mr. Liam has been in a car accident.
Bang.
What did you say? Narrator, the ladle in Emma's hand fell to the ground. After a moment, she regained her composure, her voice trembling. I'm coming right away.
It was pouring rain outside, but Emma couldn't care less. She poured the chicken soup into a container, carefully packed it in a thermal box, and rushed to the hospital in the rain. She hurried to the operating room. To her surprise, the person on the operating table was not Alexander, but a woman she knew almost to her bones.
Sophia? How could she be here?
After the incident, Sophia had become comatose and was sent abroad for treatment by Alexander. Even the doctors had said that her injuries were too severe, and the chances of her waking up were slim. And as Sophia remained unconscious, Alexander's hatred for Emma grew deeper day by day. For 3 years, to be precise, 3 years, 1 month, and 7 days, 1,132 days and nights, Emma felt like she was walking barefoot on the edge of a knife, every step stained with pain.
Emma.
As Emma stood in terror, Alexander suddenly approached from a distance, calling her coldly.
Alex. Alexander? Didn't you have a car accident?
Miss Evans, I was in such a hurry on the phone that I didn't have time to explain. Mr. Liam wasn't seriously injured in the accident. The one who was more seriously injured was Miss Leah, who was in the same car. She's in surgery now, the driver explained, following behind.
Miss Leah?
Emma looked at the woman on the operating table again and realized that although her profile was almost identical to Sophia's, there were subtle differences. She wasn't Sophia, just someone who looked like her.
So, Alexander missed Sophia so much that he found a look-alike?
Emma's throat tightened. Before she could say anything, the operating room door was suddenly pushed open, and the doctor looked at Alexander anxiously.
Mr. Liam, Miss Leah is losing a lot of blood. Has the blood donor arrived?
She's here. Take her blood. She has a rare blood type.
You called me here just to give her a blood transfusion?
What else? Did you think I wanted to be with you here? Emma, have you become addicted to this over the past 3 years? I've never seen a woman as eager as you, coming here without even changing your shoes.
Emma looked down at herself. Yes, in her haste, she hadn't even changed her shoes and was still wearing slippers. It was raining outside, and she was soaked through. This disheveled appearance became another reason for Alexander's disdain.
But it's just as well. We urgently need blood here. I just don't know if it can be used, considering that human blood is warm and yours is cold.
These words made Emma's face turn even paler, as if a hole had been punched through her heart, each breath tugging at her nerves. 3 years, and he still hated her. And he would continue to hate her endlessly. Emma couldn't take it anymore. Sometimes she really wanted to defend herself, but his coldness over the past 3 years had worn her down. Sometimes she even thought, let it be, let him hate her. Didn't someone say that hatred is the strongest emotion in the world? His hatred for her was better than having no feelings at all. She could never replace Sophia in his heart, so at least let her leave a tiny memory in his heart through his hatred. This thought was both selfish and humble, and Emma knew it. But what else could she do?
Mr. Liam, the required blood volume is large, it might.
It's okay, doctor, just take mine. My body can handle it.
She had given up. In front of this man, she always lost completely and utterly. This was her debt to him, and to Sophia, for the past 3 years. Alexander looked at Emma with a cold smile, not even bothering to look at her. Emma handed the chicken soup to Alexander. She was soaked through, but the soup was well protected, not a drop of rain on it.
Alexander, your stomach isn't well. I made this soup for you. Please drink it. Don't worry, I will help you save Miss Leah.
Pretending.
Emma was numb to such humiliation. She handed the soup to the bodyguard behind Alexander, giving him a look that pleaded for Alexander to drink it, before following the doctor into the blood transfusion room. The transfusion didn't take long. Emma was prepared to give as much as needed, but perhaps the blood bank had sourced blood from elsewhere, or the doctor couldn't bear to see her give so much. They stopped at a normal amount and let her go. Emma walked out, feeling lightheaded. As she opened the door, she saw the untouched chicken soup at the entrance. A bitter smile tugged at her lips. She had spent 3 hours making it, only for it to be discarded. Yes, she should have known. He would never eat anything she made. Emma's vision blurred, and she felt a warm trickle from her nose. She touched it and saw a startling red. All her senses seemed to focus on that red. She had just given blood and felt weak. Now, with the nosebleed, she felt the world spinning. Without warning, she collapsed to the ground.
Leukemia? Me?
Emma fled to an empty park, lost in despair.
Ugh.
Tears streaming down her face, Emma clutched her chest as nausea, burning, and sickness overwhelmed her. Her throat convulsed, and she vomited blood. Staring at the blood on the ground, Emma finally realized that her days were truly numbered.
I desperately want to tell Alexander that I wasn't that despicable. when I fell for him, he wasn't yet my brother-in-law.
It was when she was 7, at a birthday party held by the Evans family. Her parents always favored Sophia. Even though it was a shared birthday, the whole family surrounded Sophia, leaving her to play alone outside. Then she saved a handsome little boy from the pool. He told her his name was Alexander. He seemed so gentle, taking out a necklace he carried and giving it to her, saying that he owed her his life and would marry her when he grew up. Later, he did grow up, becoming so radiant and dazzling. But he was brought home by Sophia, who introduced him with a smile.
Emma, this is Alexander, your future brother-in-law.
And he extended his hand to her, so graceful.
Hello, I'm Alexander.
He remembered nothing. Yes, it was something that happened in childhood, like playing house. Who would take it seriously? Only she, like a fool, waited for him to come back. Emma clutched the necklace at her chest, her heart aching so much she could hardly breathe. For the next half-month, Emma followed Alexander's orders, taking care of Miss Leah in the hospital every day. It wasn't a very tiring job, but Emma felt increasingly unable to hold on. Perhaps it was because of her illness. Many times, she felt weak all over and had to run to the bathroom to vomit blood. Every time she saw the shocking blood, tears would fill her eyes uncontrollably. It meant her time was running out. She was really going to die soon. It was discovered too late, and no bone marrow could be found. She was just waiting for the end. Her stomach churned violently. Recently, the vomiting seemed to be getting worse. Emma couldn't help but wonder if this was another symptom of leukemia. Or maybe she couldn't even last a day. Emma leaned against the wall, preparing to return to the ward to take care of Miss Leah. Suddenly, her vision went black and she fainted. When she woke up again, Emma found herself lying in a hospital bed. In front of her was a female doctor in a white coat.
You fainted in the hospital corridor. Someone saw you and brought you in. Pulling back the curtain and looking through the examination report, you're pregnant, 2 weeks along.
Pregnant?
Emma incredulously placed her hand on her stomach.
Are you questioning my professionalism? I've been practicing for years and have never misdiagnosed a case.
No. I just find it hard to believe.
She actually had a child, Alexander's child.
I find it hard to believe too. Your cancer is so advanced, yet you're not hospitalized and instead got pregnant. How is your family taking care of you? I'll write you a prescription. Go terminate the pregnancy, and I'll arrange for you to be hospitalized.
No, I won't terminate the pregnancy. I want to keep this child.
Think it through. You can always have another child, but if you don't get treated, you won't survive.
Yes, I've thought it through.
Leaving the hospital, Emma hurried home. Emma thought that this child was a gift from heaven. She was about to leave this world, so this child could live on in her place, carrying her and Alexander's bloodline, staying with Alexander for her. She was so happy that she couldn't stop smiling even when she opened the door.
Maybe Alexander will be happy about this news too. Even if he doesn't love me, this is still his own flesh and blood.
Emma was excited, but she never expected that Alexander would be home today. It seemed like fate that she would tell Alexander about her pregnancy. As she walked closer, she saw a suitcase beside Alexander.
Are you going on a trip?
Alexander didn't answer. He just looked at her and said,
Starting tomorrow, you don't need to go to the hospital to take care of Miss Leah.
As he spoke, he pulled out a check from his pocket.
And take this to her.
Emma took the check and saw that it was for 50 million. A large sum, but her ears only heard the words breakup fee.
Breakup? Why? Did something happen?
Alexander finally turned around, but the smile on his lips was one Emma couldn't understand.
Don't you know? Sophia has woken up.
Sophia has woken up. Emma's eyes widened, and it took her a while to react. She had been in a coma for 3 years. Didn't the doctor say there was little chance she would ever wake up?
Yes, the news just came in. She has fully regained consciousness.
Alexander sneered.
Why, you don't look too well.
Emma knew her face must look terrible. Sophia had been lying in a hospital bed for 3 years and had finally woken up. This should have been a great joy, but she couldn't smile at all. She couldn't even force a smile. Alexander's true love had woken up, so this despicable secret lover, should she step aside?
I just haven't been sleeping well lately. So, are you going to bring her back now?
Yes, stay at Liam's family for the next few days and don't go out.
Before Emma could say anything, Alexander had already picked up his coat from the sofa and left. Immediately, bodyguards came in and took his suitcase. The house fell silent instantly. Emma's throat felt tight. She hadn't had a chance to tell Alexander that she was pregnant and that he was going to be a father soon. As soon as Alexander left, Emma also walked out the door. This was the first time she didn't listen to Alexander and left Liam's family. Sophia was back, so she couldn't stay here anymore. Moreover, she was pregnant. Even if she didn't think about herself, she had to think about the child and needed to start some prenatal care. Emma found a secluded hospital and unexpectedly saw her old friend, now a chief doctor, Olivia. Olivia was Emma's only friend since childhood, but this precious friendship was ruined 3 years ago when Emma insisted on staying with Alexander. Olivia thought Emma was the biggest fool in the world back then, and 3 years later, she still thought the same. To love a man, she ended up with nothing but scars. Emma had been in the hospital for almost half a month when she suddenly received an angry call from Alexander.
Where are you? Didn't I tell you to stay at Liam's family?
I went home.
Emma couldn't possibly say she was in the hospital, so she made up a story.
Home? Nonsense. I just came back from Evan's family. Emma, you don't even bother to draft your lies anymore. Who gave you the courage to deceive me? Where are you really?
Just as Emma was about to explain, Olivia snatched the phone from her.
Mr. Liam, it's me, Olivia, Emma's friend.
Hearing the word friend, Emma looked up, her heart slightly moved. Although Olivia hadn't mentioned reconciliation these days, her attitude and her willingness to help explain to Alexander now clearly showed that she was no longer angry with her. A bitter smile tugged at Emma's lips. It turned out that being ill had its benefits, any grudges would give way in the face of mortality. Hearing a woman's voice on the other end of the line, Alexander's restless heart over the past half-month finally began to calm down. Half a month ago, he had received news from abroad that Sophia had woken up. Overjoyed, he rushed abroad to bring her back. But perhaps because it had been 3 years, when Sophia cried and threw herself into his arms, saying she would never leave him again, he felt nothing but joy at her awakening. There were no other emotions. Instead, he only wanted to see a face he had once despised. Moreover, he had a vague feeling that since Sophia had woken up, that woman would no longer passively stay by his side, accepting his torment. So, after quickly finishing his business abroad and sending Sophia to Evan's family, he hurried back to Liam's family. As a result, he didn't see that woman anywhere. He panicked then, like a madman, desperately dialing her number.
Olivia? What time is it? Why would she be with you? Where did you take her?
Where else? Of course, to see other men, to let her understand that the world is big, and she doesn't have to like only you. Mr. Liam, although your relationship with Emma is special, you have no right to interfere with when she comes back. And even if she doesn't return, so what? That's her home. Since you called, I'll inform you that Emma will be with me tonight and won't be coming back.
Say that again?
Olivia ignored him and handed the phone back to Emma, indicating that she should handle it herself. Given her current state, could she really be discharged?
Alexander, I have something to do with Olivia today, so I can't go back. Don't look for me, just rest early. Also, my phone is running out of battery, and it's hard to charge it outside. Don't call me again.
Emma immediately hung up the phone and removed the battery to ensure no one could reach her. When Alexander called again, the message said, "The number you have dialed is currently switched off. Please try again later." Unwilling to give up, he called again. The same mechanical message. Alexander's face turned livid. Tonight, the Evans family was hosting a banquet. High society figures mingled, celebrating the return of Sophia, the Evans family's daughter.
Sister?
While Emma was lost in thought, Sophia approached her with a glass of champagne.
I texted you earlier, and you didn't reply. I thought you weren't coming today.
Of course, I would come. Sophia, do you know? For the past 3 years, everyone, including Alexander, believed I invited you to the bar. But it was you who invited me that day.
That night, after finishing everything and preparing for bed, Emma received a message from Sophia, saying she had encountered some trouble at the bar and needed her to come quickly. Emma rushed to the location Sophia had sent.
After waiting for a long time without seeing anyone, I sent another message to inquire. But I had no idea that you were being assaulted in a nearby alley. I never intended to harm you, Sophia. I only hope you can clarify the situation and clear my name.
I invited you? Sister, it's been so long, and you're still so naive.
What?
Suddenly, Sophia grabbed her hand and pushed her towards the swimming pool. Emma quickly grabbed the champagne table, but with a splash, it was Sophia who fell into the water.
Help. Miss Leah has been pushed into the water by Miss Evans.
Emma's breath caught. The guests quickly gathered around, and the first to rush over was Alexander, who immediately jumped into the water to rescue Sophia.
Alexander, Emma didn't mean to push me into the water. Don't blame her. She's just afraid I'll reveal the truth about what happened back then. But actually, I don't blame her anymore. She was young and didn't understand. I'm already like this, and you still don't mind. I'm already very grateful.
These words made Emma's eyes widen in shock. She trembled all over.
What are you talking about? Back then at the bar, it was clearly you.
No.
Don't be afraid. I'm here. No one will mention that incident in front of you.
Alexander ordered the servant to take Sophia inside and then grabbed Emma, dragging her to the car. Emma didn't want to go with him, but she was too weak to break free. When they arrived at Liam's family, Alexander's anger had reached its peak. He kicked open the door and threw Emma onto the sofa. Emma winced in pain, instinctively protecting her stomach. Before she could say anything, Alexander had already grabbed her chin harshly.
Emma, you always say you didn't do those things 3 years ago. What do you have to say now? To prevent Sophia from revealing the truth, you even pushed her into the pool. That really suits your style.
I didn't do it. I didn't do those things 3 years ago, and I didn't do them now. Alexander, let me go. Now that Sophia is back, why do you still keep me by your side? It's been 3 years. Even if you wanted to torment me, it's enough.
She couldn't control herself. Just thinking about the grievances she had suffered made her tears flow uncontrollably.
How laughable. This woman had done so many bad things and still hoped to leave after destroying everything.
Emma's eyes widened, thinking of the child in her belly. She struggled even harder.
Let go. I don't want to do this with you.
For 3 years, Emma had never refused Alexander. Even now, Alexander still didn't know what this woman liked about him. But she had liked him for 13 years, even enduring his torment willingly. Like a madwoman.
Alexander, have you ever loved me? Not even a little?
She was dying. Couldn't he treat her well just once? Fool, don't you know you're about to lose me?
Not even a little.
Alexander frowned, perhaps annoyed by the question, and directly covered her mouth with his hand, a mocking smile playing on his lips. It felt like something collapsed inside Emma, and overwhelming despair engulfed her. Emma lay on the bed with empty eyes, listening to the sound of water from the bathroom. Her 13 years of love had finally disappeared. She really was leaving. Tonight was her last night with Alexander. After she left, they would never see each other again. He would marry Sophia, giving her a grand wedding, while she would quietly pass away in some unknown place. The bathroom door opened, and Alexander walked out, impeccably dressed, the steam from the shower lingering around his handsome face. For 3 years, Alexander had kept her here, but he never spent the night. Every time after he was done with her, he would leave.
Don't go, Alexander. Stay here tonight, please.
Alexander glanced at her, as if he hadn't heard, and picked up the expensive watch on the bedside table, putting it on his wrist. That was usually his last action before leaving this place. Emma panicked and quickly got out of bed.
Don't go, please. It's going to rain soon. I'm afraid of thunder. Just tonight. Stay with me, please.
That humble voice, begging him. Alexander's blood seemed to stop flowing for a moment. He paused in putting on the watch, ready to place it back on the bedside table. But in less than a second, his phone rang. It was Mrs. Evans. Emma knew the voice well, because it was her biological mother. If she remembered correctly, Mrs. Evans had never shed a tear for her, but now, her crying voice came clearly from the other end of the phone.
Alexander, come quickly, Sophia has tried to harm herself.
Alexander's hand trembled so much he almost dropped the phone.
When did this happen? I'm coming right away.
No. Alexander, don't go.
No one knew better than Emma that Sophia would never harm herself. This was just a ploy to get Alexander to go back. But why today? Why did she have to be so cruel, not even willing to give her one night with Alexander?
Let go. If it weren't for you provoking her at the bar today, how could Sophia have tried to harm herself?
Alexander pulled his leg back in disgust and urgency, not even sparing Emma a glance as he prepared to leave.
Alexander, I forbid you to go. Don't you know, I'm dying. I'm going to die soon.
Then just go die.
This woman was ridiculous, making up any lie just to keep him. Alexander hurried out of the room, leaving it in complete silence. Emma stood still for a long time, then covered her face with her hands and sobbed uncontrollably. Alexander didn't come back all night. It was all over. The nightmare of the past 3 years, the love of 13 years, was finally coming to an end. Emma packed all her belongings, took one last look at the place she had lived for 3 years, and left with her suitcase. It was evening, and the lights of countless homes were on. Looking at the lights waiting for people to return, Emma felt immense sadness. In this world for over 20 years, everyone had a home, but she did not. In the end, she didn't even know where she would end up. Just as she stepped out of Liam's family's house, a taxi stopped in front of her.
to the bus station.
The driver didn't respond, fiddling with his phone.
Please, to the bus station,
Before she could finish her sentence, the driver suddenly turned around, took out a spray bottle, and sprayed it in her face. Emma's vision went black, and she lost consciousness. At that moment, in the hospital room, Alexander was feeding Sophia porridge. Sophia's face was pale, but a happy smile appeared on her face.
Buzz.
Alexander's phone suddenly rang. Sophia looked over, and the name Emma made her heart skip a beat. Just now, when Alexander went out, Emma had called, saying help me. Sophia immediately hung up and deleted the record. Now Emma was calling again. It wasn't hard to guess why. A trace of malice flashed in Sophia's eyes. Damn it, were those two thugs so incompetent? After all this time, they still hadn't taken care of her?
Just as he was about to answer the call, Sophia grabbed his hand, tears streaming down her face.
Alexander, please don't answer Emma's call, okay? I'm not blaming her, but she just told me those things yesterday. I don't want to hear her voice right now.
As she spoke, her tears flowed even more.
All right, don't cry.
Looking at the woman crying in front of him, Alexander hung up Emma's call and sent a text message. Sophia finally smiled. So this is what the countdown to life feels like. The phone rang with a beeping sound, as if counting down the last moments of her life. Beep, beep, beep. 3 seconds, 2 seconds, 1 second. Finally, the call was disconnected, followed by a text message from Alexander. With her blood-stained hand, Emma opened it and read each word.
Don't disturb me and Sophia.
Ha ha. Emma suddenly burst into laughter, her desperate laughter echoing through the warehouse. At this moment, she was truly in utter despair. It seemed like all her strength was about to drain away. In the last few seconds of her life, in the dilapidated warehouse, Emma placed her hand on her lower abdomen.
Child, it's Mommy's fault.
Alexander stayed with Sophia in the hospital all day. He didn't return to Liam's family's house, but went to another villa he owned. Late at night, after taking a shower, Alexander came out of the bathroom and looked at the phone on the bedside table. He suddenly remembered the call from Emma earlier that day. At that time, Sophia was crying so pitifully that he didn't answer. Not only did he not answer, but he also sent a message telling her not to disturb him. For the past 3 years, every time he mentioned Sophia or said something humiliating, her expression would become extremely pained, her whole body trembling, looking as if she couldn't bear it. But she endured it. For 3 whole years. So Alexander subconsciously thought that such a message wouldn't affect her. Besides, how else could he remind her of her place? A mistress is just a mistress, after all. Morris Group expanded overseas, and Alexander took the core team abroad. This business trip lasted a whole month. During this month, the woman who usually asked all sorts of questions just to hear his voice, who clumsily called him every day with trivial matters, seemed to have completely disappeared. She didn't contact him at all. No messages, no calls, nothing.
What does this mean? Is she playing hide and seek? Ridiculous.
As soon as he got off the plane, Alexander didn't even go to see Sophia. He went straight to Liam's family, determined to show that woman what it meant to know her limits. But when he opened the door to Liam's family, he was met with a cold, empty atmosphere. There was no woman standing at the door with joy, no woman handing him slippers, no woman following him, cautiously asking if he wanted to eat first or take a bath, telling him that dinner was ready and the bath water was prepared. Alexander stood at the door, feeling a bit at a loss. It was the servant who came up to him.
Young master, you're back?
Where is she?
Young master, do you mean Miss Evans? Miss Evans left a month ago.
Left? Who allowed you to let her leave?
Alexander rushed upstairs, kicking open the bedroom door. She didn't have many belongings to begin with, and now that she had packed up, the room was completely empty. Looking at the empty house, Alexander felt an inexplicable tightness in his chest. He remembered that night, how Emma had clung to him, humbly and desperately begging him not to leave, to stay with her. At that time, she couldn't live without him. He never imagined she would leave with her suitcase, so cleanly and completely. Standing in this room, he couldn't even catch a trace of her scent. She was really gone. 3 years, he had tormented her for 3 whole years, and she left without taking anything, disappearing without a trace.
Young master, a phone call.
Just as he was staring at the empty room, unable to move, the servant approached with the phone.
Hello, is this Miss Emily? This is Grace Hospital. We have found a matching bone marrow for you, according to your medical records. Your condition cannot be delayed any longer. Please come as soon as possible to complete the procedures.
Boom. It was as if a bomb had exploded over Alexander's head. His face turned pale instantly, and for a moment, he seemed to hear nothing.
What did you say? Leukemia?
The person on the other end of the phone paused upon hearing a man's voice, but quickly responded.
Are you Miss Evans' family member? How could you let her condition get so severe without hospitalization? Does she not want to live anymore? Her blood type makes it hard to find a bone marrow match. You need to inform her immediately to come to the hospital tomorrow. Her condition can't be delayed any longer. If it is, not even a miracle can save her. Hurry up!
With that, the call ended. Alexander remained in the same position, holding the phone, his movements stiff.
Emma, why didn't you tell me?
Moments later, an inexplicable emotion swept over him. He felt dizzy, nauseous, and as if his entire body was being cut by blades. The pain made him tremble.
Alexander, I forbid you to leave. Do you know, I'm about to depart from this world. I'm going to leave soon. Alexander, I know you hate me, but I won't be in your way for much longer. I'm begging you, stay with me, just for tonight. After tonight, I'll go far away and disappear where you can't see me. Did you ever love me? Even for a moment, a second?
The scenes from that day were vivid in his mind. Alexander's breathing became rapid, and he didn't dare to recall how he had hurt her that day.
She was such a difficult woman, causing Sophia so much pain. I kept her by my side, treating her as a secret lover, humiliating her mercilessly. Yet, when I saw those tearful eyes, I felt a twinge of pity. But that feeling shouldn't exist in my heart.
So, he could only humiliate her more ruthlessly, using the cruelest words to destroy all her hopes. Alexander never thought he would feel anything. But upon learning she had such a severe illness, he didn't feel happy. Instead, he felt pain, intense pain. Pain that even he found inexplicable.
I never believed I had any feelings for her.
Alexander never imagined he would one day mobilize all his connections to find her. He was clearly drunk, grabbing the bottle again and pouring it down his throat.
No! I never loved her. I didn't before, I don't now, and I never will.
Alexander once thought this answer was certain until he went mad trying to find that woman, almost turning the world upside down, when he received a call from the police station.
We recently found a female body in an abandoned warehouse. Due to the remote location, the body had been there for a month. Through identity checks, we found that the last call the deceased made was to you, confirming it was Emma, the second daughter of the Evans family.
After hanging up the phone, Alexander's heart raced like never before. He had never driven so fast in his life. From the moment he received the call to the moment he arrived at the warehouse, He didn't believe it was her until he saw someone pull back the white cloth covering the body. The nose, eyes, eyebrows, and lips all unmistakably showed that this was the woman he was looking for. The body seemed to have been cleaned, but traces of the torment she endured were still faintly visible, a gruesome sight. And she had been gone for a month, only discovered when the smell of decay caught the attention of a rare passerby. Alexander's heart pounded violently. For a moment, he even thought his heart had stopped. The officer stood by nervously.
Mr. Liam, Miss Evans was kidnapped and harmed by a criminal. The cause of her passing was a wound to the heart. There are also signs of abuse on her body. The coroner has confirmed that she was expecting a child, a double tragedy.
Alexander's pupils dilated as he stared at the body, suddenly grabbing the officer by the collar.
What did you say?
The officer was startled, almost watching Alexander's expression change from disbelief to wild joy.
I said, Miss Evans was expecting a child, so unfortunately, it was a double tragedy.
Alexander was both happy and angry.
How do you handle cases at your station? This is not her, and you dare to ask me to identify the body.
The chief was stunned.
Mr. Liam, what are you saying? The blood test report is out. The blood on the ground matches Miss Evans. This body is indeed her.
Nonsense. I don't care about your damn blood report. This is not her. Whoever this is, find their family to claim the body. Don't waste my time.
With that, Alexander released the terrified officer and left without another glance at the horrifying body. Usually, it was Emma waiting for him in this empty house. He never thought that one day he, Alexander, would be waiting for her with anticipation. The doorbell suddenly rang. Alexander personally went to open the door, full of joy.
Where have you been these days? Do you know how to come back?
But the next second, the smile on his lips froze completely.
It's you?
Who else did Mr. Liam think it would be? Please step aside, Mr. Liam. Emma left some things here. I'm here to collect her belongings.
Olivia's eyes were swollen, looking like she had cried for a long time. She reached out to push Alexander aside and walked straight to the upstairs bedroom.
What do you mean by belongings? What do you mean?
Olivia gave a cold smile, which looked worse than crying. She ignored Alexander and continued upstairs. If she could, she really didn't want to come to this place. But Emma had asked her in the hospital that if she passed away, she must take that thing from Liam's family and burn it in front of her grave. In the end, she didn't pass from her illness but in such an absurd way, taking the child in her belly with her, passing in utter despair. Olivia rummaged through the cabinets and finally found a well-wrapped square box in one of them. The box wasn't valuable, but it was wrapped in layers of red cloth, showing how much its owner cherished it.
Olivia.
Olivia turned around and looked at Alexander quietly.
Mr. Liam, don't be so quick to get angry. For the sake of Emma liking you for so many years, now that she's gone, I'll give you a gift.
With that, Olivia took out a report from her bag, each word dripping with hatred.
Mr. Liam, come over here. The light is better here, so you can see more clearly.
Alexander's legs felt like they were filled with lead. Even though he couldn't see the words on the report clearly, his heart felt like it was being ripped out. He walked step by step towards the report.
Pregnant! She was pregnant!
Suddenly, the image of the body he identified at the police station flashed in his mind. The chief had said that the body had a child inside, 2 lives lost. Alexander suddenly felt like he couldn't breathe.
Have you finished reading? As far as I know, you've been looking for Emma these days. I can't bring Emma to see you, but I can let you hear her voice.
With that, Olivia took out a phone. Alexander recognized it as Emma's phone. Olivia pressed a few buttons, bringing up the recording playback interface. A noisy sound came from the phone, sounding like a struggle.
Alexander, help.
You wretch. How dare you kick me? You're going to pay today.
At first, it was all men's voices. Then, suddenly, a scream pierced the air, tightening Alexander's heart.
Ah.
With a thud, Emma fell to the ground. The recording went silent for a moment. The only sound in the house was Emma's breathing, followed by the beeping of a phone dialing.
Pick up the phone, Alexander. Please pick up the phone. Alexander, please, save our child.
The beeping continued for a long time, then came the increasingly heavy breathing, accompanied by a mechanical voice.
The number you have dialed is not available. Please try again later.
Ha ha, ha ha ha. Alexander, you're heartless, truly heartless.
Finally, with those words, the laughter abruptly stopped. Olivia put away the phone.
Did you listen to it? Alexander, this is the woman who loved you for 13 years. The recording I played for you should be familiar, right? This recording was accidentally made during Emma's struggle with the assailants. I checked the call records. The last call Emma made before she passed was to you, and you didn't answer. Instead, you turned off your phone, didn't you?
Alexander's mind went blank. His whole body felt like it was trapped in a nightmare.
The voice in the recording, it's her?
Olivia laughed, but her eyes were filled with tears.
Can't you recognize it? Oh, I almost forgot, young Master Liam, from beginning to end, you looked down on that foolish woman. You despised her, so how could you remember her voice? Do you know? I've never seen such a foolish woman. Facing death, she didn't call the police, she still hoped you would come to save her. And what happened? You not only didn't answer, but you also turned off your phone to avoid her. Well, she won't bother you anymore. Congratulations, Alexander, you've finally gotten rid of her.
After shouting, Olivia turned to leave, but Alexander grabbed her forcefully. They struggled, and the box in Olivia's hand fell to the ground. With a thud, the box opened, and photos spilled out. It was a group photo, probably taken when they were 7. Alexander had been brought to the Evans family by his parents. On that day, he accidentally fell into a pool and Sophia saved him. So, he had the butler take a photo of him and Sophia, telling her to remember his face and come find him in the future so he could marry her. But now...
Why is the photo of Sophia and me with her?
Alexander trembled as he picked up the photo, feeling as if some truth was about to emerge, something he was eager to know but also feared would be unbearable. Hearing this, Olivia seemed to hear the biggest joke in the world.
This is clearly a photo of Emma and you. How could it be Sophia?
What did you say?
With a loud bang, Alexander felt like a bomb had exploded over his head. If the girl in the photo wasn't Sophia but Emma, it meant the little girl he had saved when they were young, the one he promised to marry, was actually Emma all along. Alexander felt his whole world collapse. His breathing became erratic, his hands trembled, he felt dizzy and nauseous. Just thinking about how he had tormented the one he loved the most for 3 whole years filled him with deep regret.
How could this happen? I did such things to the little girl from back then, and even indirectly ended her life, along with the unborn child she carried. 2 lives lost.
Olivia realized the truth as she saw Alexander holding the photo with deep regret.
So, she suffered even more than I imagined. Just for the amulet you gave her when she was young, she jumped into the pool like a mad woman, searching for 3 whole hours. And in the end, you mistook her for someone else. Do you know why I came to take this photo? Because I want to burn it in front of her grave and tell her, Emma, look closely. This is the man you loved all your life, the one who also tormented you all your life. Look closely, in your next life, if you see this man, make sure to avoid him. Never meet him again.
Olivia forcefully took the photo from Alexander's hand, a sharp knife cutting off all his ties and hopes. Alexander wanted to snatch it back, but he knew he had long lost that right. After Olivia left, the empty house was left with only Alexander. The air was so quiet that even breathing could be heard. This was the place where he had tormented Emma for 3 whole years. She was in constant pain, but no matter how painful, she never wanted to leave his side.
Emma, I was wrong. Please come back. From now on, I will treat you well, cherish you. I won't let you suffer anymore.
I was really wrong, Emma. Your Alexander is here to marry you. Please come back.
The air was silent, and no one answered him. Alexander felt his world collapse, leaving nothing but bones. It was as if a long needle had pierced through his body. He had lost the most important thing in the world. That night, not long after Olivia left Liam's family, she received a call from Alexander.
Did you take Emma's body?
Of course, I took her. Didn't you go to the police station and abandon her? Her parents didn't care about her at all. They probably wouldn't shed a tear even if they saw her gone. If I didn't take her, who else would?
Alexander's heart felt a sharp sting, each word squeezed out from his throat.
I thought it wasn't her.
Olivia laughed again.
Where is she now? Give her back to me.
Impossible. Alexander, Emma has already been cremated by me. I found a good place for her, and she has been laid to rest. Don't think about disturbing her anymore.
Who gave you the right to cremate her?
Alexander's emotions suddenly became agitated. Just thinking about Emma's body being burned made his heart feel like it was being crushed into pieces.
Where did you bury her? Tell me!
Alexander, let it go. The most painful thing for Emma in this life was falling in love with you. If you have any conscience left, I beg you to let her rest in peace and not disturb her even in death.
Olivia hung up the phone, and Alexander felt a sharp pain in his heart. It wasn't that he wouldn't let her go, but that she wouldn't let him go.
Why didn't I understand before that she was the one I always loved? Why didn't I realize earlier that she had already entered my heart, so even when I misunderstood her and hated her deeply, I would still seek her out, always thinking about her?
Alexander felt regret from head to toe, deep into his bones. Now he only wanted to keep her by his side, only wanted to see her, nothing else mattered. So, shortly after Olivia hung up, Alexander immediately called his subordinates, instructing them to find Emma's grave no matter what. When he said those words, Alexander felt an immense pain in his heart. Emma was really gone, and her body had been left in an old warehouse for a whole month before being discovered. For 3 whole days, Alexander couldn't sleep. Olivia seemed determined not to let him find it. Despite mobilizing all his resources, it took 3 days for Alexander's people to find Emma's grave. It was raining heavily that day. Alexander stood in front of the cold tombstone, the cold wind wailing, and for the first time, he truly understood what it meant to be separated by life and death.
Emma.
Alexander's voice trembled as he knelt down and gently touched the tombstone, carefully wiping away the rainwater, as if calling to his lover. But in front of the tombstone, there were no longer Emma's smiling eyes looking at him, only the wailing wind, like crying.
Emma, it was my fault in the past. Even though you were so good to me, I didn't cherish you. You must blame me a lot, so you lie here, not waking up, wanting to torment me for a lifetime, right? Emma, do you remember? You asked me if I loved you. I love you. But when I realized it, I had already hurt you deeply. Emma, please wake up. From now on, I will love you well. I promise to do whatever you say. Don't torment me like this. It really hurts. It hurts so much I feel like dying.
Alexander's whole body convulsed with pain. For days after listening to Olivia's phone recording, he could hardly breathe. Each time he closed his eyes, he saw Emma lying helplessly.
What did I do?
He was at the hospital with Sophia. Even worse, under Sophia's manipulation, he missed Emma's last call.
The pain is unbearable. It feels like my heart is being ripped out, burned in fire, soaked in ice water, and then sliced with a blade.
She was the woman he loved the most, yet under someone else's scheme, he tortured her for 3 years and caused the loss of her and their unborn child's lives. If time could turn back, if he could recognize his feelings earlier, he would have loved her well and never hurt her. Olivia chose a burial site in the outskirts for Emma. The grave was simple, with only a tombstone bearing Emma's name and nothing else. In front of the tombstone was a burned photo of him and Emma from their childhood, now reduced to ashes.
Do you know why I took this photo? Because I wanted to burn it in front of her grave and tell her, Emma, look closely. This is the person you loved all your life and who also tormented you all your life. Remember this well, and in the next life, avoid him at all costs.
Olivia's words still echoed in his mind. As she said, the photo was now burned.
It wasn't just the photo that was burned, but his heart.
A thunderclap suddenly woke Alexander up.
Emma, I can't leave you alone here.
Without hesitation, his long fingers dug into the soil. Under the pouring rain, Alexander dug at the grave with his bare hands.
Young master.
The bodyguards standing nearby were shocked, almost dropping their umbrellas. They rushed forward to stop him. But in his crazed state, Alexander couldn't hear them. His mind was filled with thoughts like it's too cold here. I can't leave her alone. Emma will catch a cold sleeping here and she can't forget me. If she really forgets me completely and never meets me in the next life, what will I do? The bodyguards were terrified, but Alexander dug out Emma's urn with his bare hands, his hands covered in mud and blood. Holding her in his arms, Alexander felt both pain and joy.
Emma, don't stay here. I'll take you home.
From now on, he would spend his life with her. Alexander carefully held the urn, walking to the car under an umbrella, his blood dripping from his fingers, leaving a trail. What shocked everyone even more was that when they arrived at the hall, they found a casket in the bride's place. Everyone had different expressions, secretly wondering if the young master of Liam's family had gone mad. No one dared to leave, given Alexander's status in a city and the power of the Morris Group. The priest had never officiated such a wedding, but he maintained his composure.
Mr. Alexander, do you take Miss Emily to be your wife, to love her, care for her, respect her, accept her, and remain faithful to her until the end of your life, whether in sickness or in health, in happiness or in sorrow?
Alexander gazed at the side, his eyes suddenly becoming gentle.
I do.
Soft music played, and pink balloons floated outside the hall. Olivia, invited to attend, watched the scene with a heavy heart.
Emma loved the wrong person. But so did Alexander. His pain was greater because Emma left this world before him. Recognizing his true feelings only after her passing, he was destined to suffer for a lifetime.
This wedding shocked the entire city, and Sophia couldn't avoid hearing about it. It was raining outside. Alexander got out of the car with an umbrella, his expensive suit soaked by the rain, but the black box in his arms well protected.
Alexander.
If it were before, Alexander would never have let Sophia get wet in the rain. But now, seeing her in such a sorry state, he walked indifferently past her.
Emma was kidnapped and tormented to death by a group of thugs. Do you know who ordered it?
Alexander, I never ordered anyone to kidnap Emma. Her passing in the warehouse has nothing to do with me. Someone must be framing me.
If I remember correctly, I never mentioned that Emma died in a warehouse. How do you know so clearly?
He stepped closer to her.
Sophia, for doing such a thing, shouldn't a life be repaid with a life?
Sophia's legs went weak, and she fell to her knees with a thud.
Alexander, you have to believe me. Why would I harm Emma for no reason?
Who I truly love, others may not know, but don't you? Sophia, do you think if you hadn't pretended to be Emma from childhood, I would have been with you? And under your repeated schemes, hurt my beloved Emma?
Sophia's eyes widened in shock.
The incident at the bar 3 years ago, those thugs were clearly the ones you recklessly provoked. You sent a message to Emma, wanting her to endure the humiliation from those thugs for you. But Emma went to the wrong alley and didn't suffer as you wished. You harbored resentment and, in a fit of rage, called me, putting all the blame on Emma, making me misunderstand her for 3 whole years. And the drowning incident a few months ago, you falsely accused Emma, didn't you? According to your usual behavior, you fell into the water yourself, but blamed it all on Emma, even taking the peace charm I gave Emma when we were kids. Sophia, for all you've done, even if I were to cut you into pieces, it wouldn't be too much. A life for a life, isn't that still too light?
Sophia's face turned completely pale at Alexander's words. After so many years, she knew Alexander's ways too well.
Alexander, I was wrong. I did all this because I love you. Truly, I love you so much. From that birthday party when we were kids, I fell in love with you. But your eyes were always on Emma, so I pretended to be her. I was wrong. Please forgive me.
Forgive you? Who will forgive me? Sophia, if it weren't for you, I wouldn't have missed her for so many years, and she wouldn't be gone now.
Every time he thought about it, Alexander felt suffocated with pain.
I've already made those who hurt Emma suffer the most severe punishment. Now it's your turn. Sophia, don't you love using that pitiful face to gain sympathy? Fine, I'll grant your wish.
Alexander, what are you going to do?
Come here. Destroy this woman's face. I want her face to be completely ruined.
Several bodyguards stepped forward. Sophia's face was her most important asset. Now that the Evans family was ruined, if her face was destroyed too, what would she have left? The next second, she was dragged out by Alexander's bodyguards. From then on, endless nightmares awaited her. In the warehouse, the woman's screams could be heard almost every day.